All right, so Travis Kelce seems to be performing and producing fantasy points again in the NFL playoffs after disappearing during the fantasy playoffs. What's up with that?
I know, right? Everybody that drafted him in the first round after he was so elite the last few years, and then Patrick Mahomes decided, let's not throw it to him as much. He's a busy guy. He got a busier dating life now, not focusing on game planning. Let's take it easy on him. Well, they realized if they start going to him relentlessly like in years past, oh my God, they're winning playoff games. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's wild. It does seem to be that they really struggled when they weren't force feeding Travis Kelce the ball, and now
Yeah.
they're back to force feeding it to him like they used to, and they're winning games again. I mean, he was 11 for 11 for 118 yards and a touchdown this last game. That's crazy.
Well, and that's the most crucial part. 3 touchdowns in 2 games in the playoffs already. He had 5 the whole regular season, and none after week 11.
Yeah,
and never multiples in any game. So they figured out, oh yeah, he's a heck of a red zone target.
it's wild. Yeah, in fantasy playoffs, he disappeared. He didn't even score double-digit points. And you either drafted him in the first round, or gosh, if you were lucky enough to even get him in the second round, or you traded a lot to get him to try to get your fantasy team to the championship, win a championship this year, and just didn't get that production. He still finishes the number 3 tight end, but it was not pretty, and you didn't get it from him when you needed it most.
It was all from early season production. He got double digits in every game until week 9.
Mm-hmm.
And like 1 or 2 really big ones in there. He had a 35-point game. But when you just look at his targets early in the season, 9, 8, 9, 11, 9, 13, 9, relentless. Starting week 9, when he hit his first single digit, 4. Come back after the bye, 9, 7, 5. He did have a 10 target one in there, 7, 7, 4. Okay, now switch over to the playoffs. 10, 6, 11, and 3 touchdowns. Like, the targets spiked, the red zone usage spiked, his production spiked. And that is the Travis Kelce that everybody drafted back in August that they didn't get in week 15, 16, 17 when he got 7.8 points, 9.4, and 4.6 respectively in your fantasy playoffs. That's brutal. But
yeah, it looks like Travis Kelce may be on the decline. They're at the end of the fantasy season. Everyone kind of losing hope. His brother's retiring. Is he maybe going to follow the same path? Now you see this resurgence again. Looks like Travis Kelce is back. Let's just hope that the Kansas City Chiefs remember that they have him and keep feeding him the ball.
Yeah, it's almost like they were managing his workload, so to speak, like towards the end of the season. Like, we're going to need him in the playoffs. I mean, 7 and 4 as far as targets isn't a tiny workload. Some tight ends would love to get that workload, but it's not a Travis Kelce workload. So maybe they were managing that a little bit because they knew they'd need him in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they lost some really bad games towards, in the second half of the regular season. So, at least they made the playoffs still.
Yeah, I blame Taylor Swift. That's just me.
Yeah, blame Tay-Tay.
Yep, exactly.
He needs to shake it off and move on.
There you go. Well, it looks like he has. And so would you say that he's back and it's looking like you can trust him again to start next season?
Absolutely. I mean, he came in these playoffs, kicked the door down, reminded everybody who he is. He doesn't look worn out. He doesn't look any of that stuff that people were talking about at the end of the regular season. It was just a slump. It happens to everybody. Everybody has them. Clearly, he's out of his. He still has immense elite talent at the tight end position. So, absolutely. I don't think you'll see him going as high. He was going, 4, 5, 6 range in some drafts in August. I think you'll see more like that 8, 9, 10, maybe very 2.12 or 3 in that range more. That maybe 10 to 15 range versus top 10. But I mean, that's still elite. He's still going to get it done for you next year.
Is that a result of Kelsey's been tier 1 on his own and then everybody else? Now would you say he's now joined by a Laporta, maybe even an Andrews, or some of these other guys now joining him in that same tier? Not that they've risen to his level necessarily, but he's kind of dropped into their tier. Does that make sense?
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
because before,
really.
like you said, he was one, and then the next tier was Andrews. In prior, like this last August, you have what, Andrews, Kittle, guys like that, Hawkinson, et cetera, et cetera. This next year, I think you're not going to have Kelce up on his own. You're going to have one large tier at the top.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be him, Andrews, Laporta,
Hawkinson,
Trey McBride, and Hawkinson. I feel like are going to be kind of your guys, and then towards the top of that second tier is where you'll see guys like Kincaid. But that, I think you have a really clear top 5. I don't think Kelce is really that much above them anymore because they've become so elite.
I agree. But hey, nice to see Kelce back, and I'm drafting him next year if I can.
I was going to say, before the playoffs, I had him with Kincaid at the top of that second tier. So seeing that he still has it, yeah, he's still at the top for me.
Perfect.